Hello, this is Scott Sweeney, and welcome to AI Content CEO Chats. Today, we have Harish Kumar, founder and CEO of CrawlQ, and he's joining us to talk about how their company is solving content teams' content design issues. And this is my co-founder, John Cass.
Hi, thanks, Scott.
Hi, Harish. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks, Scott and John, having me here. It's a pleasure to speak to you and happy to answer your questions.
Fantastic.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So I was actually curious. I know there's an actor named Harish Kumar. Are you any relation?
Well, to be honest, there are more Harish Kumar than you can imagine. So I'm one of them, but I'm not actor, and I'm not going to perform today like actor. I will be staying true to myself.
Perfect. Great. Excellent.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to clear that up before anyone asked that question. So let's jump right into some of our questions. Tell us about yourself, Harish, and your AI journey.
Thank you. So myself, Harish, I have more than 18 years of experience in the industry with data, machine learning, and mostly my background is product design engineer. I think my AI journey started last in 4 or 5 years. And it was mostly because of my background with the product design engineering. I have been leading product teams in a different complex environment from Ernst & Young, you know, EY, it's a consulting company, and then big banks. And be small or big, the most important roadblock that I faced in my profession was these silos between product, silos between marketing, and silos between sales teams. So when I started to explore this problem, the problem was more deeper than you can think, because none of these teams, even when I started within marketing or within product team, they were not speaking the same language. And the root cause analysis that I did myself was that they were not clear enough on who is their target audience. Mm-hmm. They are after going on who is their audience, and that's the fundamental question that was kind of lacking. And I started thinking, okay, if we can create a common language across sales, marketing, and product, and then I realized this need to happen within marketing, within sales, within product development, because silos are everywhere. Silos are not only between these three arms, but also within. And the problem was not only with the big organization, but the problem was also with the smaller companies, even a startup. Even if one person CEO, he's thinking in a different compartments: sales, marketing, and product development. The three minds are working in silos. And that's a fundamental problem for many of startup failures, business failures in big organizations. Projects are not delivered on time, in budget. Many repercussions are happening. So I think that's an interesting investigation that I started, and underlying mechanism that I started, because my background was not marketing or sales, because I come from product design. So I started thinking in terms of customer. So customer-centric approach, like what pain points my customer have. And I started applying this idea of jobs to be done by customers, understanding their pain point. Then obviously, once you start talking in broader terms, then you see there are different concepts. Like people are saying, I know what is my ICP, ideal customer profile. Someone tells me, I know who is my target audience. Someone is saying to me, I know what is my audience persona. And then someone says, okay, buyer persona. So everyone within marketing, sales, or product are talking in different terminology, even who is their target audience and the definitions around it. So the framework that I put around CrawlQ is that you start with a broader niche Within niche, you go to sub niche, and you go to micro niche, and you apply jobs to be done framework to narrow down your micro niche. And then within the context of micro niche, I identify an ideal customer profile, and I call it based on demographics. So roles, age, income, location, those kind of demographic factors determine within the micro niche your ICP. Then this is one set, right? The demographics determine one set, and it is ICP, and that determines to whom you are going after. So for sales team, for product team, it's very clear that we are going to this geography. These are the people with the experience. This is the group that we can study more or understand more. So you have a clear approach to whom we are going after, but that doesn't solve the problem still. So you still need a lot of people which are not only your ideal customer profile, but also the influencers, the ambassadors, the people who are going to amplify the impact, right? So then I call another persona and call audience persona. So a audience persona is more based on semantics, like the topics of interest. um, it's more related what kind of authority or topics, and that includes everyone being influencer in that field. So for example, let's take example, like there are many people who are influencing CMO as a role, right? CMO is a role, and there are many people who are influencing, and they are thought leader on the topics, pain point of CMOs, right? So then this is audience persona. So now there is an intersection between audience persona and the ICP, your ideal customer profile. So based on demographics and based on semantics, and the intersection, I call it buyer persona. And that buyer persona is dependent on the psychographic factors. So going into deeper into problems, desires, and outcome. So to start with, I want to correct here that CrawlQ is not an AI writing tool. It's a research tool. It's a persona building tool. It's a tool which starts with ICP. It helps you to clear your audience persona. Then intersection, it defines a buyer persona. And this is a buyer persona that you develop your customer journey from top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. And once you are up with the research, the tool automatically also help you to create content which is highly resonating to a stage of the buyer persona. Are they in the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, or bottom of the funnel? I started this company in 2019. When I started, it was a very high level template with an Excel template, Google Sheet, with trying to ask a lot of questions with the people. And I started working with 5 clients. So everything that you see in CrawlQ is created from scratch as a framework, as a combination of different ideas from job to be done, then a background from product design engineer, and try to address the needs of marketing and sales as well into it. So it was a framework. It evolved into a research tool, and then I applied artificial intelligence, NLP, GPT-3, and all the data that I could pull from Google, Reddit, Quora, and other sources to get the right information and to create a very structured research output that also feed dynamically to the content creation. So that's how the whole part. And of course, it was a bit longer, but you can ask me a more specific question.
Well, what I find interesting, Harish, is that point that you started at the beginning, where you're talking about those different silos and there's no conversation amongst each of the different departments. And so that focus on the research is both hopefully to solve that problem across the different departments, and then also have a single mechanism for communicating within those departments as well. So that's really the focus, isn't it? Which is the research, and then you do the actual content creation. So I would suspect that most of the clients that are coming to you, when they look at the software, they're looking at the AI content. So how do you meld that in what the software does between the research and the content creation? What are the outputs like? How does that actually produce for the clients?
Sure. So of course, I applied this software for myself also, and I tried to find my buyer persona. And it was not an easy one because you see the AI content writing as a niche has evolved, and there are many players into this niche, and it was very difficult initially to differentiate. But when they start and they come and they see completely different way to create or understand how the content should be created, and obviously it created a filter mechanism. And also I did a lot of rework on how I wanted to target my audience. So my current focus is on brand strategist and content strategist, because those are the people who are linking pin between product team, sales team and marketing team. They are creating kind of overlays on these silos, right? The people who are responsible for brand strategy. And that's where my current focus and target is, where to solve the problems of the brand strategies. And slowly, of course, SaaS founders, accelerators, people who are validating their business ideas or coming up with the new business ideas, tool can be highly useful. But I'm very conscious of how I open up my niche and also how I market it. So my current focus right now is on the brand strategies. And I cannot, of course, I created segments, but most of my customers, they are staying or working longer with me, are either content strategists or business consultant or agencies who are serving multiple clients, both for research purpose and also for content creation.
And what do you think is the strength of the product with the clients that you're working with, those brand strategists? What do you think is the strength for them?
The core strength of the CrawlQ is ability to pin down on a specific micro niche. And the moment they realize this, they open up the main differentiating value of CrawlQ, because most of the other options that are available in the market produce very generic content. Why? Because most of them starts with either a topic or keyword. And artificial intelligence right now has a limitation because it's a probability based model. So if you give any kind of input which is generic, then there is a more room for this massive neural network to go in tangential direction. So people are okay, they want to get their time cut or shortened to write something. And many people are good enough when something is generic. They good enough, it's when good enough, it's good enough for them. But when they come to CrawlQ, it's eye opener for them that how CrawlQ can zoom in to a specific micro niche or a specific marketing or sales angle, and then take them through a very unique content. So it's like it's some upfront work that need to be initiated, because not only the keywords that you input, but more inputs about your business problem, desire. And also there's a lot of automation from the where we were 1.5 years back and now. So you only need to supply maybe in 2 or 3 inputs, and then it creates a persona, ideal persona for you. And obviously you are going to humanize those input, rework on those input to make it your business specific. And once you do that, the results are outstanding. They're clearly different from what you can get from any other alternatives, for example.
That's great. Harish, your approach is very different than almost any of the companies that we've seen. I don't see someone else starting with persona and go to micro niche. Tell us how that helps a content designer or a brand manager in terms of working with research or briefing or the actual writing, optimization of content, expansion, etc.
Right. So when you zoom into a kind of a team structure where brand manager is responsible for producing content, streamlining the different silos, marketing, sales, and product. And also, I think most of the brand managers and CMOs are also responsible for creating ecosystem where they can pull all the available data and technology resources together. What I observed most of the time is there is a mad rush to get more and more tools, but nobody's brainstorming like how to get best out of it, right? The available technology. So right now we are in the phase where there is a hype, but as people settle down, we're still going back to the fundamentals. And the fundamental here is to understand the pain point of your audience. The old method to do this was surveys, questionnaires, focus group studies, but these methods are hard to scale. And also when people try to implement those methods, they are prone to biases of how you design those questionnaires. So most of the teams currently, they are not aware that we can shortcut this process by using some smart AI tools like CrawlQ, right? But the moment they start working on it, they can realize that how it can cut short their time. Now, in terms of organizing the team, I would say that you would be hiring agencies or expensive market research, or you will be reverse engineering this customer problem from the massive amount of data from Google Analytics, from everywhere. But in my approach, you're still back to the basics. You're trying to understand this one particular customer. You're making hypothesis about this, and you're validating that hypothesis by creating content. So you have a research team, you have one person who's going to do the research, you have 3 or 4 people who are going to create content. They are rapidly going to create content and validate with the actual signals that comes from customers, from reviews, from their interaction on the customer support desk, from the emails, from internal systems that they have created. And the more they can give feedback loop back to CrawlQ and the research, the person who's doing research or responsible for research, they can speed this process faster and create more ROI, because they don't have to hire expensive research marketing agencies or to market research agencies, which is by the very, very expensive. If you see, to collect that kind of consumer insights and data on that level is a very difficult job and a very expensive job. So they don't need to hire those people. They can work with CrawlQ, but someone who is a domain expert in that area is needed to validate those inputs and also to validate the market feedback. Once you have that function sorted out, right, then rest is very automated, because you can hire as many as virtual assistant. They don't need to think about again and again who is their need micro niche or ideal persona. Everything is set preset as a research. So you can create multiple preset of research. You can clone them, you can A/B test them, you can apply different marketing angles on the different stages of the customer journey. So I think it will be great cost reduction, because they can consolidate this research function into one person, and then they can scale the process of content creation by hiring virtual assistants, which need not to reinvent the wheel, but they just follow the research that is already there. And there is an internal AI within CrawlQ which take care of your research and the content creation. So there's a linking pin. I call it Athena. So every time you can train Athena, it's almost like your virtual AI assistant, which makes sure that all the research that is done by Athena herself, based on your initial input, are also connected to the output, and she's writing intelligently on all the information that is there and validated by your team.
So is there some metrics and dashboard that your customers receive that they're able to review and maybe provide human input in terms of the weighting of the importance of the data that's coming back in?
Sure. So right now we are still developing other matrices, but the most important KPI right now is every content that you produce from CrawlQ, you get a score, how much it is semantically related and contextual with your initial audience research. And there are some parameters, of course, you can play around, but the better the score, I mean, if score is 100%, then you're almost repeating your research in your content, right? And the score is 0, that means your content doesn't make sense with your initial research. But if the content is good enough, let's say 75 and above, then I call it you're getting yes from your Fred. I call Fred your audience as a target audience. So Fred is person who has fears, he's roadblocks, he wants results, he has desires, and if your score is more than 75, then you're going to get definite yes from your Fred. That's how we play around with single metric right now. And that's my goal also, not to create multiple metric and confuse user, but play around with one single metric. And if necessary, try to create additional signals which form the computation or explanation of this single metric. So I still want to drive a single metric in terms of ensuring that what you create as an output is very consistent and it's streamlined with your audience persona.
Excellent. Good. Thank you for that explanation. It's very unique, and I think it has a lot of value for the target audiences that you're talking about. I have one question that I like to ask because it usually spurs some really great thought and ideas. And it's this: what's one thing that most people believe is true about AI content generation, which you don't agree with whatsoever? You think it's false?
Right. Most of the people who use AI content writer, they believe that the AI can write the unique content or create unique information, which I don't think is true, because these all AI models are trained on existing set of information. So unless you heavily intervene with this process or humanize your input, you cannot create unique content. Because if you start with one topic, whatever you feed into it, it cannot generate unique content because it is already trained on a vast amount of internet data. So regardless of this perception, people are happy what content they get, but they are just diluting the value on the internet because there's already such a content existing there. And that's where this neural network has learned this. So my approach to this is to really break at every point of entry your data into this neural network, where you're calling this machine, big machine, inject your interventions, and more you do, more possible that you get an outcome which is unique.
That makes
Great.
absolute sense. You're still including the human in that element there. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, Harish. We really appreciate you joining us on the AI Marketing CEO Chats podcast today.
It's my pleasure to talk to you, both of you.
And thank you to the audience for supporting us, and we'll see you the next time.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.